Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. I am your host, Jacquelyn Hurley, and I'm so glad you're joining us today because I'm excited to introduce you to my guest, who brings over 3 decades of marketing and entrepreneurial expertise to the table. So today we're going to talk about what it takes to attract the ideal patient. And I would love to introduce you to Rusty Curtis. He is the CEO of Lumn, and he also is the author of the book on dental marketing. So I'm excited for you to look that up, and maybe that will be helpful to you. I want to start with a little bit of his journey. He started out as a business creator that went way back to when he was 7 years old, and he crafted and sold paper airplanes to his classmates during recess. And that entrepreneurial spark never went away. It carried him through middle school, high school, and eventually to one of the top advertising programs in the country, which is Brigham Young University. So over the years, Rusty worked and consulted in multiple industries. And by that point, he had already decided dentists were his favorite professionals to work with. So since then, Rusty and his team have helped dental practices around the globe generate hundreds of millions in revenue, all by helping them attract their ideal patients. Rusty is more than just a marketing expert. He's a consummate strategist, a gifted speaker, and an educator with a rare knack for anticipating market shifts and creating solutions that work. Rusty lives in the rugged, beautiful Utah mountains at the base of those mountains. He just is not that far from me, probably just down the street with a wonderful wife and their bright, energetic kids. And one of the greatest aspirations in his life is to be like Santa Claus when he grows up. I love that. Everybody wants to be Santa Claus. So welcome, Rusty.
Hello.
Hey, I'm so glad to have you here. I'm excited for our conversation today. We are both blessed to live here in Utah at the base of these beautiful mountains that I don't know about you, but I look at them every day and I am grateful that we live in such a beautiful place.
Absolutely.
So one thing I wanted to start out with today is you've worked in several industries, but you kind of chose to focus exclusively on dental marketing and working with dentists. What made you fall in love with working with dentists?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's altruistic and then there's obviously self-serving needs there. I mean, most dentists are really good people and they're just doing their best to run a business that provides balance for them in their own life, where they're doing good in their communities. And so I like helping that. We get to help them in their effort. We believe that dentistry truly changes lives, especially quality dentistry. So it's an opportunity to help there. And then it just worked out well because, quite honestly, a lot of them needed help, and the options that they have often don't get them where they want to go. So it was a good fit. If you follow Japanese philosophy at all, there's this concept called ikigai, and it's this place right in the middle of a Venn diagram where it's what the world needs, what you're good at, what people are willing to pay for, and these things. And that just kind of was right in the middle of that.
I love that. That is so great. I completely agree with you. I personally have jumped into the dental industry too, and I feel like dentists are good people and they really want to make a difference in the lives of patients and the lives of families. So I totally agree with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about marketing today. And in your experience, how do you think most dental practices fall short in their marketing goals?
Are you asking why?
Yeah, I'm asking why. Is there a lack of planning or like the wrong strategies in place? Execution is not there. Tell me what you think is the main reason they fall short of their marketing goals.
Lots of answers to that one. I think when many people look at marketing, it's so visible that they think, oh, I could do that too. And they don't quite understand the thinking or the strategy behind it and all that. It would be similar to me going in a dental office and me thinking, oh, I can see teeth. I know it looks good. Let me tell you how to do it. And there's so much there to understand and how these different pieces connect in order to really do it right. And, you know, dentists are smart. They're doctors for a reason. But I think that there's a whole body of knowledge and skill set that they're kind of often unfamiliar with there as far as how to build these things and create them. And, I may be jumping ahead here, but one of the biggest things that many practices don't understand about marketing is that advertising is part of the marketing pie. Typically, when they're thinking about marketing, they're just thinking about advertisements, getting it out there.
Yeah.
But marketing, zooming up a little bit, a market is anywhere there's a buyer and a seller. And so marketing is anything that you're doing to connect that buyer and seller. So that's what you're doing internally. That's how you're messaging. That's how you're presenting to the world, not just with advertising. That's how you're interacting with people. So the foundation of marketing for a dental practice usually comes back to culture and patient experience and the vision of the practice. And then all the marketing and all the advertising efforts need to align with that. There's this term that I use that most dental practices default to in their marketing, and I call that whack-a-mole marketing, right? They go to some conference, they hear some speaker who's had rave success with Instagram or TikTok, and every dentist in that room thinks, oh, I need to get on TikTok because that's where it's at. And so they go after that. That's the whack-a-mole. That's the mole that popped up. 3 months, nothing really happened from that. And they think, oh, that doesn't work for me. So then on to the next conference, the next idea pops up, and that's what they do. What tactics to use, what mediums to use for which practice, and the message that you use and who you're targeting. Because, if you're trying to sell implant-supported dentures, you probably shouldn't be doing, twirls and backflips on TikTok, because that's probably not where your market is, right? And so there's so many different elements there to understand in order to put the right marketing package together, all the way back down to the foundation. I'm going to bring it home to roost here. Your foundation is your culture and your patient experience and your vision there.
That makes sense. That makes a good foundation, I think. That's the start. That's where you really should be starting with your team and with your patients. So do you have any examples of maybe a practice that kind of took that whack-a-mole experience and then they kind of stepped back and you kind of helped them start with that foundation?
Quite honestly, I'd say most. It is very rare that I talk to a dentist that has been very intentional and strategic about a comprehensive marketing plan. Right? They hear about a tactic, and it's very important to understand the difference between strategy and tactics. Strategy is the overall plan and goals that you're trying to accomplish. Based on that, you select different tactics and mediums to achieve that objective, right? And again, that's one of those things that most people, most dentists aren't understanding that or taking that approach when they do it. So specific examples, I mean, I can rattle off one after the other. But it's really, really exciting to see a dentist when we lay out the framework, to see the lights turn on and for them to get it and feel excited, especially when we start helping them to develop their culture and understanding who they are, who I'm really trying to attract. And when they get all of that into alignment, for us, it's kind of before and afters, right? So dentists get really excited about a wonderful cosmetic before and after. That's like us working with the practice when we can take them. They have an idea of what they want to be, but they don't know how to do it. They can't look in the mirror and figure that out. And to help them get there, that's really exciting for us.
That's wonderful. Is that what kind of sparked your new name change to your new branding over to Lumn?
That's part of it. Our rebrand, it's the cobbler's kid have no shoes kind of situation, right? So when we started our marketing company, it was at a time I had lots of irons in the fire, if you will. And we just started getting so many dentists that I realized, hey, we've really got a niche specifically into this. And kind of as an afterthought, we said dental CMO, because we can be the CMO of a dental practice, right? But we weren't following our own guidance on that. So our slogan is light up your market. And actually, the subtitle of my book, the book on dental marketing, is How to Light Up Your Market and Terrify Your Competition. And so our logo, our emblem, our logo mark that we use is an anglerfish. And these are those terrifying fish that live in the bottom of the ocean that have lights that they grow to attract basically their next meal and their sustenance there. And we thought, what a amazing metaphor for marketing. Out there, right, is in a deep, dark, competitive marketplace. You're the person that grows a light on your head to stand out and shine in the area. So we thought that was a wonderful image to use, and it coupled with our slogan very well, light up your market. And Lumn is Latin for light. So that's how we landed on that.
I love it. I've been curious about that. So thank you for explaining that, because I've wondered, and it makes total sense. What a brilliant mind behind all of that. So good job. You probably help independent practices as well as DSO type practices. Do you help both?
Well, we can. The thing about a DSO model is the whole intent there is to try to bring the back office support under one roof. And so usually with the DSO, once they hit 12, 15 practices or so, that's when they try to bring marketing in-house as well. Unfortunately, again, with most of those, it's usually not that great from a marketing standpoint, but that's their business model. So yeah, the majority of our clients are either one or two or three location practices that we work with.
Okay.
And on that note, we actually typically work with more of those practices that are either fee for service or trying to go fee for service, get rid of insurance, and attract specific types of treatments, whether it's cosmetic dentistry, implants, Invisalign, specialties, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay. So I'm sure it's tricky because the larger corporate dental chains, they kind of have probably a bigger budget for marketing, where these little independent solo, I mean, how do they compete? I mean, what's the smartest way for a private practice to stand out and compete effectively with those big multi-location practices?
Wow. Usually these practices aren't even fighting for the same patients.
Got it.
If you're talking about one of these mill type practices where they're just, their business model is churning through patients and billing insurance, often that's not even what a lot of these nicer practices want anyway, private practices.
Yeah.
So they're not usually competing for the same type of patients there. But if they are, there's been this big shift over the last 5 years. I think COVID maybe spurred some of it, but a lot of people are just bucking against anything that feels corporate, right? In any industry, right? They want to feel like they're working with the artisan or support your local business, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, from my experience, most of the DSOs, the dentists that they have there are usually not the guys with 10 to 20 years of experience and all the advanced training from Spear or Coy Center or whatever. Those guys don't want to go work for the man usually. They want their own practice and to do a high level of dentistry.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily apples and apples when you're looking at that. Now, with that being said, if you are competing for the same patients, the custom approach, know the dentist, build the value of seeing this expert versus trusting in some corporate brand where you get the dentist that's just out of, dental school. They only have a year under their belt and they're learning on you.
Well, that makes total sense. And it seems like these private practices can use that to their advantage. I'm sure that when you pull in a new independent practice that's, a new doctor, you probably kind of have to figure out exactly what patients are you looking for. And then you kind of create their whole brand around what type of patient they're looking for.
That's part of it. The bigger part with really creating a brand the right way, we actually just did, and I won't drop the name here because I don't want to embarrass any clients.
Sure.
But this dentist was so hung up, and he is a great dentist. He's down in Texas. He was so hung up on the idea of how do I need to present myself in a way that my market will like me? Uh-huh. And the thinking is, oh, well, this is what they'll like, so that's how I'm going to present myself. But the problem is consumers are becoming more and more savvy, so they sense the disconnect, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, that's not really who you are. And so really when you do branding the right way, it's less about trying to put on the mask that you think everybody wants to see, and it's more of figuring out who you are and presenting that in a really effective way. Ideally that does resonate with your market, but it's much more authentic and engaging and effective.
I love the organic feel of that. And I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that organic feel. I know the older I get, the more organic I become, the more I don't care what people think. I am who I am. I just want to be who I am. And I think that's important for anyone, but especially dentists who are trying to market themselves. They do need to be that organic person. The people are coming to them most of the time because it's who they are. It's those relationships that they're building, that fake mask, like you say, that they've put on. That's fantastic. So this might be a tricky question, and I don't know if you'll have a good answer to this. You probably will. But let's just say, I'm just curious, if a small independent practice only has, I don't know, $1,000 a month to market their practice in a competitive area, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, I can answer that question, but it's not going to be easy because the answer is it depends.
Mhm.
1,000 a month, if you're in a competitive market,
Yeah,
I'll just pick one. Let's say you're in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, right? $1,000 a month is going to do nothing for you if you're just
sure,
investing in organic SEO.
sure.
Nothing, right? You're going to fight for maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe hopefully to work your way onto the first page of some priority treatment. And then again, there's no guarantee that anybody's even going to click on that. It really depends on who are you talking to, what are you trying to promote, and identify, I'm going to jump the shark here a little bit, but if we're talking about the South, then I'll use this comparison. Jackie, have you ever heard of a honey hole in fishing? You know what that is?
I do not.
Okay, when you get back in the country, you have guys that have their honey holes. It's their secret fishing locations that they don't tell anybody about. And they know exactly what kind of fish are there. I know exactly what kind of lure to use there because I figured it out over the years. And they don't tell anybody about it. And so they can go out there, have a great day, and everybody else is trying to figure out how they did it. But they keep it tight like that, right? So in most markets, there's a way to figure out what the honey hole is for the practice. Whether you've got a really gregarious patient base that's well connected, then leverage that for new patient referrals. If sometimes this happens when you get into a real high-end community and it's kind of the patients value their anonymity more than maybe a discount on treatment by using them as a spokesperson. I've seen that in Palm Desert or La Jolla, California or whatever, where people are like, no, I'll just pay full price. Don't use my face kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So then you got to figure out, well, what are the levers that I can use in this market? And then that's what you do. Now, with that said, I'll back this up. And I have found that a very good rule of thumb for a practice is to, instead of trying to look at a dollar figure for what is my budget, and then I think most dentists do this, is they go to some marketing company with the preconceived notion of, hey, I want to buy SEO and videos and a website and mailers, and I'm willing to pay you this much, without them giving any thought to, is your brand going to resonate? Are those the right mediums? Is that who you really want to talk to with these tactics? So they look at marketing more like a menu, like an a la carte menu when they're going to the restaurant, instead of how they do dentistry, which is, if you come into me and I'm the doctor, what's the first thing that I should be doing outside of getting to know you? Before I diagnose anything, what should I do? I got to take x-rays, right?
Oh,
I got
okay.
to, I have to understand your situation. What's your occlusion? What dentistry have you done before? Let me see the x-rays. Let me see current, I have to understand all of that.
The whole
Because
oral picture.
everything, because if I make the wrong recommendation, it might make you worse off than before.
Sure.
You may come in thinking I need veneers, and I look and say, actually, your bite's all out of alignment. We got to get this straightened out first. We need to get an implant there. Otherwise, you're going to get some jaw deterioration, whatever, before we do that. And that's the same thing with marketing is, who are you? What's your situation? Let's understand that first. And then we can truly assess what needs to happen in order to build a successful marketing campaign.
Got it. Well, let's circle back to the foundation, because I know a lot of people, when they think of marketing, they do think of those ads and websites. And I will tell you, I have seen some before and after websites that you have created, and you do a beautiful job.
Thank you.
And so I hope people will go to, is it getlumn.com?
Getlumn.com, and that's Lumn without the
Lumn.
Getlumn.
Those websites that you've created, they're gorgeous. And I know a lot of doctors that have used you. But let's go back from talking about ads, websites, social media, all of that stuff. Let's go back to what sets the foundation again. I think we should dive into that, because I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle to attract the right patients right from the get-go.
Absolutely. Let me talk about two parts of that. So there's culture and patient experience. And your brand is kind of the visual manifestation of that. Your culture of the practice. Okay. Typically, that's going to be the dentist or the dentist owner setting that. Okay. When you have a clear mission, that's your why. That's why you do dentistry. That's why you get out of bed and go to the office. That's your why. That's what energizes and infuses you. That's what you can tap into to keep going and keep driving and making sure you're doing the right things. Your vision is what success looks like, a vision of success down the road. Hey, we want to be the premier cosmetic dentist in Fargo or whatever it is, right? Miami, wherever you are, that's your vision of success. And then your core values, that's really how you act. And there's great books on this. I think it's Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. That was all about the founding of Zappos and how they built their culture. Another one is Who, the A Method of Hiring by an author last name Smart, which is convenient. So these are great books that really emphasize with case studies and examples of how critical your culture is. And we've seen this with actual hard data. We had access to a survey done, I think it was about 250 practices. And the questions were tailored to establish kind of a rubric, a metric-based system to try to attach a number or a score to the quality of a culture of a practice. So based on the questions, you could rank how strong the culture was in the practice. Those practices that had a strong culture got 3 to 5 times more referrals than those without. And they did, I think, 20% better in revenue. So there's a significant business case to make for that. And I'll give you an example of a practice we worked with that didn't have the culture dialed in. This was, again, I will avoid names. There's enough dentists in New York City where I don't think anybody could figure out this was. But this dentist, and forgive me for this sounding mean or anything, but she was pretty much a diva, right? She could not keep any of her team in. They would turn over about every 3 months. It was her shows all about her and whatever it made to make her look good. And she couldn't understand why her marketing wasn't working. In her head, my marketing's not right. I need to get a marketing group to fix this. And she could never, ever look in the mirror and realize people don't like you as far as how you act. And that's mean, but that was the truth. The team members couldn't even stay there. She kind of turned off the patients. And in her mind, the problem was the marketing. But in reality, it was the culture. And I've got a great example. She's since retired, but I love her, Dr. Jamie Sled. She was at a point where she was just about ready to sell her practice because she was just so fed up with so many things going wrong in the practice. And she went to a culture camp. And while there, she realized that so many of the problems happening in the practice were due to 3 of her 6 teammates that were on her team in the practice. And so at this culture camp, she really got clear about what was important to you, defined her culture. And while she was still there, she reached out to those team members who were still at home and said, hey, you 3, this is how we're going to do things moving forward when I get back. And if you can't commit to that, then I don't want to see you in the practice when you get back. They decided to leave. And when she got back, she went on to have one of the best years that she'd ever had with half the team. Because she got her culture in alignment. You got to get your own house right, get your team right, have everybody being cohesive and doing what you're supposed to the way you want to. That will manifest in your patient experience, what people experience when they come in. And then your branding needs to align with that and communicate that story of who you are and what's important to you and how you do things. And when you get all of those things in alignment, again, that's the foundation. But everything above that, when it's in alignment, that's when you get true sustainable success with your marketing.
I love it. So how can an individual practice owner assess whether their foundation is strong, like their culture is strong? Or it sounds like working with the doctors you've worked with, they kind of had to go somewhere to figure it out. Is it something someone can figure out internally, or is it something that they're going to need help on, finding those red flags that they should be looking for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it has to be, I joke around and call it kind of like a psychic sweat lodge. You have to crawl into your head and, really go on this mental and emotional journey to figure out who you are. Now, we can be the Sherpas in that journey, but typically, and I'm not saying this to try to sell people, it's pretty hard to do it on your own without guidance. Some can actually pull it off pretty well, but it can be an uncomfortable process to really look in the mirror and figure out who you are. And you'd think that would be easy for them, but when they actually try to go pen to paper, that's when the gap becomes apparent. So yeah, there are great books. Those ones that I recommended would be a great start. Another one, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. That's a good one to help you on that road, but it is doable on your own. But it is a stretching process. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It answers it. I feel like it's a good thing for dentists to think about, because sometimes they might feel like there is a red flags here somewhere, but I don't exactly know what that red flag is. And they might just have to go on a journey of reading some books and figuring it out on their own, or it might just be easier and faster to hire someone like you to help them figure that out.
Yeah, and it just depends on the practice. Some people like the challenge. If you want the easy button, yeah, hire somebody that knows how to do it. But I get that there's financial considerations and time considerations and all that.
Sure, sure. Okay, so this is kind of my last question. What is there one marketing mistake that you've seen over and over again that could easily be fixed?
Just one.
There's probably more than one.
Yeah, there's a lot. Woo.
Well, I think really that was like going to be my final question, but I was thinking about, and if there's not one, maybe there's just a common something that comes across the top of your mind when you're thinking, and it could just be like you say, they think the big solution is out there through social media and their website and all of that, where really it just needs to come back.
The practices that I've seen do the best over the years, if I really try to boil it down outside of the culture stuff that we just talked of, they treat their practice legitimately like a business, understanding that marketing is one of the 4 business units of the business. So you've got HR, you've got operations, you've got finance, and you've got marketing. And those 3 pieces are what form the business. So when you get outside of dentistry in the business world, successful businesses allocate a percentage of revenue towards marketing. That's how they do it. Yeah. Right. And fortunately in dentistry, I'm telling you, most dental practices can slay it in their market and their community with only 5% of revenue allocated to marketing. Software as a service can be up to 50% of revenue goes to marketing. Yeah. So for a dental practice who's actually interested in growing and attracting their ideal patients, 5% is pretty low. So I'll say that just trying to get by as cheap as you can. I think a lot of dentists use it as like a badge of honor to say, well, I don't spend anything on my marketing. Okay, well, have you been growing? Are you happy with that? Well, no. Well, you gotta make a change there. So here's the final thought for things that practices should do. Allocating a percentage of revenue and sustaining that, committing to that, but then adjusting as time goes on. So not just saying, hey, we spend 5% on mailers, we're never going to change, but keep the spend the same, but always be looking to further optimize and make more efficient your ad dollars and what you're doing.
Sure, that makes sense. I think we've had a great conversation today, Rusty. You've done a fantastic job talking about marketing, setting the foundation. Is there anything you'd like to add before we conclude for today?
I'll talk directly to the dentist. You are doing a wonderful job out there. You're doing good and you're changing people's lives. We would love to help you if you're interested in maybe attracting more of your ideal patients. You can go to getlumn.com, schedule a free consult. We could see what you have going on and what your goals are and see if we're a good fit for you. But otherwise, keep up the great work.
Oh, that was a great little ending, because I feel like so many dentists, sometimes they don't feel like they're doing this so great, especially when it comes to marketing. Their goal is just to be clinical and to take care of people's oral health. And I think you've given us so many actionable takeaways today. So if you're ready to find and attract more of your ideal patients, Rusty is offering that free consultation. I love that. He takes care of the busy work on the marketing side. eAssist Dental Solutions, which is a proud sponsor of this podcast, can take care of the busy work on the dental billing side, and we're grateful for them. We do know that stronger marketing plus stronger collections is going to equal a stronger practice. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Rusty. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.